the idea, certainly in Europe, is that it is important that rural places should develop, but they should develop themselves. So they should use the resources that they have, and from that develop their economy and develop their capacities, and that's what we call endogenous development or also territorial development. But that is an idea of development taking place over there. And I might, from my central position, support that a little bit by giving subsidies, but it's not related to my position. Whereas I think a really inclusive rural development does not only consider the inclusion of all rural residents, that is one aspect, and I will come back to that, but it also includes the interrelation between the development here and the development there. So rural development should not only be left over to the rural places, but should be a responsibility and a concern also to the urban places, those in the proximity of those rural areas, but also those more central, because the development of both is related with each other. Another important aspect of inclusive rural development is that one of the backside of endogenous development is that it's very often the relatively strong part of the population, and very often what is considered the elite of that particular place, which dominates the discussion of what kind of development should take place. They have the interest, they have the connections, and they depart from their own interest. Whereas, even though we have a very harmonious idea of rural communities, they are also divided. There are also groups which are less included in rural development policies, that are generally women, that are generally younger people, and that are all people which are poorer or not considered as belonging to the real population. So, for instance, immigrants are generally not taken into account, even though they might live there for several years, but they're not considered as the most important actors. So as you see in many places, in many villages, that the main actors of rural development plays are actually the middle-aged or more mature white male residents in the central positions of power. That is undemocratic for once, but it's also dysfunctional in my view, because it delivers rural development plans which are also one-sided in the type of future they foresee. So they generally depart from what is there now and see a future which is similar to that, but based on the interest of those forceful actors now. Whereas certainly for young people, if you want to keep young people in rural areas, you need to take their wishes and their plans and their prospects into account. And they might foresee a different kind of society. And they are rarely considered. The same is true also for women. So for me, inclusive rural development means taking into account the interest in ideas and activities of all rural population, all rural residents, including those which might live there only temporarily, take into account the places surrounding those areas, certainly try to invest in urban-rural relationships, and also consider at an even higher level of scale that rural development is part and parcel of the development of the whole country.